Hi, I'm Susan Craig and I'm at the Sewickley Public Library, and I'm going to teach everybody how to make an evergreen wreath. This is my base. You have a kit, and the kit includes the base made of grapevine, a hanger for the back. It's out of gold wire, a little bit heavier than the wire you'll use for the wreath, which is wrapped on this paddle, which is made from stirring sticks from the paint store. You'll have 3 bags of greens. The first bag has a fir, which is actually has needles only on 2 sides, so it's soft on the back. And then we have, this is a little more scratchy, but I'll show you how to solve it. There's another bag, and we have things like the soft, very soft needles of the white pine. And that can be used, the two could be used together to protect your hand if you need to. Then we also have some other decorative things. We don't have so many of them included because they're unusual and they're for just an accent. This is a U. Again, a little prickly, but you can pull out your pieces of white pine. And then we have boxwood, easy to work with and makes a little colorful accent. We have a few sprigs of those. Not enough to make the whole wreath out of that, but enough to accent it, make it interesting. And the key to making one of these wreaths is you see wreaths that are for sale that have all the same kind of boughs, same kind of evergreen in it. They're okay, but these will be unique because each one will be different and each one will have your choice of greens from among what you have. So you have 3 or 4, 5 actually choices of what you're going to use, so you can pick anything. The first step we do is we put a hanger on your wreath. This is something that I put in a different color wire, put a little ribbon in the middle so that you could find it again. The thing to remember as you're doing the wreath is not to cover over this. It's very hard to put on a hanger after the fact, after you've finished the whole wreath. So I put a little bow in the center. So I want you to crisscross a loop that fits 2 fingers, no more than that. I might even make that a little smaller. And then, you know how you twist tie with bread when it comes from the store to keep it fresh? Well, that's what I want you to do with the ends of the wire, is that same thing. Maybe 2 turns. And you still have that in the middle. Then you pick up your wreath. Now you look at your wreath and decide, well, which is the front, which is the back. And actually one of the back is usually a little flatter. So this is my back and this is my front. So I'm going to take the approximately 4 or 5 inches of ends and I'm going to put it around the whole wreath so it covers it. But since I want this in the back, I'm going to pull it a little to the back, and then I'm going to twist these. Making wreaths takes strength in your fingers. When you're finished, you'll have strong fingers. So I twist it 3 times again. 3 is a good number to remember. But because this wreath, even though it's an outdoor wreath, it's going to hang on a door that might be painted. It might be hung on a wall or a garage door that might be painted or something you don't want to have scratched. So every time you have ends on anything you put on the wreath, you make sure that you tuck. See, there's plenty of grapevine twigs here to wrap it around. You just want to make sure it doesn't scrape any surface. So here's our hanger. So we've made our hanger. It's in the back. We know that this is the front now. We take our hand, and hand's about 5 inches away from that point. And if you're right-handed, you're going to have to take the paddle wire in your right hand all the time. The left hand is a guide. So in this case, we want to guide the end of the wire onto the wreath. And you're going to hold it down to one of the twigs, and then you're going to slowly unwrap this so that you can drop it down. See how it stays by itself? If you use this, it would fall and then you'd have wire everywhere. So then you pull it, but now remember to hold on because you haven't secured it yet. So you're going to do this 3 or 4 times till you're satisfied that it's not going to pull out. That was 3. Okay. Now we'll lay that aside. Now we're ready to learn the technique for how to fill out the rest of the wreath. First thing we do is we look at all of the possibilities that we have to make bundles. We're going to make bundles of evergreens using different materials in every bundle. And these have been pre-cut. The stems have been shaved back. And this is about the size of your hand, more or less, maybe 2 inches. It might stick out one way or the other. And then this is down the wrist. That's the way you're going to lay it. Here's one. Here's another one. Now they're all looking very different. That's the point, because when you put them all together, they make a whole, it's like making a whole painting. You don't know it's finished till the end. So I'm going to put some white pine with it because one of these is a little bit prickly. And then I'm going to add, this is 3 pieces put together. You can do 3, 4, or 5. That works on a wreath. This will be my 4th piece. So I have a little bit of boxwood. I have the white pine, and I have the other 2 types of evergreen. All right, so I come back to my wreath, and I'm going to, right where I wrapped already, I'm going to place with my right hand, I'm going to place the stems in that spot. And I'm going to use my left hand as a guide to keep the greens on the face of the wreath, not on the top. So that takes some guiding. Then I'm going to pick up the paddle in the back. I'm going to bring it around, upward motion in the same spot. And how many times do you think I'm going to do this? You're right, 3. If you're not happy with it, do a little bit more. If you do that on each one of the wreaths, you might run out of wire. So get good at this in the beginning. All right, I finished that. Now, the test is, that wasn't a stem, but that was a piece of the evergreen. That's fine. As long as the stems don't move, we're in good shape. Right. Now we've put our first bundle on, and I want to just remind you of the technique we're using because we're going to use it on the whole wreath. So we better get it right the first time. So when we wrap, this is an extra wrap, I know. When we wrap the stems, we go to the top of the wreath, but we drop our paddle and go into the center of the wreath to then bring it up. That's the technique we use throughout the whole thing. So we're going to add our second bundle. Now I'm going to start with a different green. And let's see, a little bit of white pine. I kind of like the way it looks. And just maybe a smaller one of this. Now this particular one has a yellow back. It's flat on the back. It depends on how you want it to look in the wreath, but I suggest you put the flat side to the back because more of the yellow shows, but you might like the yellow. So this time I'm going to add just a small piece of the yew. Now it's prickly, so I might want to add a very small piece of, well, I have a small piece here. I'll just put it in the front. There we go. So now we go with the same technique, but this time we're going to lay the fullness of the bundle, holding it with our left hand, and then we're going to wrap with the upward motion the stems. But this is tricky because you have to move down the wreath a little bit, then wrap it, and I would say you need to have your left hand help you a little bit, or your right hand if you're left-handed, and then you pull it tight. The idea of this, I want to do it how many times? 3 times, right? Maybe 4. If you're not sure you got it tight enough. Now there's my, let's see. I'll do one more. And then we pull it back like this. Okay, what we've successfully done is we've hidden the wire and we've hidden the stems. And that's the whole rationale going around the wreath. All right, so we're going to continue around the wreath, making our bundles. I'm going to put something interesting in my bundle this time, just a little bit of it. And maybe I'll add this U as well, and a small piece of this. Some pieces are as small as this, but when put with other ones, you can have branches sticking out. So again, we're going to cover our hand over where the wire is, and we'll bring it down gently to where these stems are. Bring it down in the back. Make sure that you don't wrap it all around the greens. And so we have our next one, and how many times do we do this? Tightly? 3 or 4. This is a big wreath to get around also. That's my 3rd. I think it looks pretty good. Now I check it for fullness. Do I feel like all the groupings are full enough and match each other? Not in the materials chosen, but the fullness, the thickness. That looks pretty good to me. There's lots of air showing. You can always give these wreaths a little haircut if you find one long piece hanging out. That's okay. You can use your scissors to trim that. You don't want to trim it too much. You've already got a round wreath. The idea here is to make it have dimension and different textures. All right, so that's our 3rd one, and we will continue all the way around the wreath in the same manner, picking our bundles of what appeals to us. This is one with side stems, and that's fine. And then we'll maybe take a different one and put it in the back. Oh, I think I need some boxwood. I'll put some boxwood in. And then continue around, using our left hand to cover those stems from the one we just did. Moving our paddle wire down, making sure we capture all the stems. That's my first wrap. I go in and I pull it again, take it up, drop it back, pull it again. That's my 3. Now, here's our hanger. We haven't wrapped over it, but we're getting to the part of the wreath where we might be tempted to do it. So we'll keep our eye on the piece of ribbon and on the gold wire. You could use a green wire, that would be fine, bought in a floral store instead of this color. Okay, so we are getting close to the end. Now, do we think it's full enough everywhere? Is there a suggestion that we ought to add some more greens? We can always straighten it up a little bit because we've wrapped the stems, but they're still a little bit movable. I hope it's even. Okay, now we're going to lay the last 2 or 3 bundles. What's important here is that you want to keep an eye on when you come to back to the first one that you did. That's what we're wanting to see. How many more pieces do we need to put in? Okay, so I'm putting it on my stems. And I'm wrapping it again. Now you might be tempted to wrap over the greens. You want to hide everything, so be careful about the wire. What's good about this wire is it's really flexible, so you can make it do what you want. Okay, well, we still have some more to go. So this is 5 to fatten this up a little. All right, a little more. I'm going to move the wires down. Right now, we're right in front of the hanger. This makes it a little hard to wrap because you've got other things in the way from the first bundle, but just push them aside. And wrap again. That's 3 times, okay. All right, put it down, another bundle. Sometimes you'll find you feel the stems are too long. They're easy to break with your hand. You will get kind of grimy from the sap, and that's why we cover the table. But it can be cleaned off with dishwashing liquid that you find that your parents use at the sink. All right, so we have 1 more to go. Just making sure this is tight. Now this time we're very near the hanger, so we have to think about that. But we are not quite underneath this one. Well, maybe we could be. Yeah. I'm going to put 1 more. This is a smaller bundle, and I'm around the hanger. I just have to be careful I don't catch it. It's hard to hang up. That's 2. Pulling it tight. That's 3. Now, the final one, there's stems here, and then there's a way to cover the stems, but this is too far away, so I need 1 more bundle, and that's it. And that is where you're going to need help from somebody else to hold the first one that you put on the wreath back a little, so that I'll show you how to do that. Let's see. Oop, I got a little tiny bit of U. I'll put that in there. Now, this is best viewed here. So you're going to have someone help you push this back, slip these wires underneath that. So somebody's holding this back, and you are wrapping stems again. And hopefully the stems will be completely under this the first bundle you did. It doesn't always work that way. You might have to put a small one in also. Depends on how thick you want the wreath. Right, that's 3 times. Now, holding it up, I still see, move these forward again. I still see sort of a gap at the top. Maybe our first bundle wasn't fat enough. So we can fix that. We can do a very small bundle to round that out, just some really small pieces tucked in here. Now here's where it really gets hard. I'm just trying to sneak in yet another bundle. My paddle again. Somebody's pulling those back for you. If you wrap them real tight at the beginning, they're not going to come apart. So you're wrapping it 3 times like we do. Now we hold up our wreath and take a look to see if the wreath maybe needs a haircut somewhere, a piece that sticks out too much or a piece we're not happy with. So I'm looking this over and I'm thinking, you know, it seems like there's something going on here. So maybe it's a little bit fatter there, so maybe I will trim 1 piece back, another piece back. What about the top? There's 1 here that sticks out the back. I'll cut some of it. Now it's more even, but don't go crazy with giving it a haircut. You may have no wreath left by the time you're done. All right, to finish off the wreath, in the place where we just did the 3 for the last stems to wrap, now we have to do 3 more in the same place because we're going to end the wreath now. So you have to pick these out again. Make sure you don't wrap the stems. You only wrap the stems and not the fullness of the wreath. All right, that's number. So that's my 5th wrap. 3 plus 3 is 6. Okay, now I've got it tight enough. I flip it this way. It's not going to hurt the wreath. And I take out about 6 inches from the wreath, clip it, Now, we don't want to scratch the door that it's going to be on, so we weave it in and out just the way we did before in step number 2. There's usually a twig that you can use. And you wrap it until it's completely gone. Usually around the same piece twig works the best. After some of the twigs in this wreath are small. This is a nice big one. I have one more wrap. Like I said, this can be the hardest part. All right, now we should be able to run our hand around the back of the wreath and not feel a wire. If we do feel a stick sticking out, we could cut that if we wanted to with shears. There's one right here. You have to be thinking about where you're going to place it. Now, you're ready to decorate. You're ready to decorate. We've cut our wire off and woven it in the back of the wreath. So now we're going to use this wire, which is flexible, to cut it into foot-long pieces to start adding our decorations. I always suggest that if you want to have natural materials in the wreath, that you do those first. And remember where your hanger is, and work in numbers that are odd. 1, 3, and 5. It makes the wreath look a little more interesting, more artistic. All right, so to do a pine cone, you're going to lay the pine cone deep into one of the sections of it, and then you're going to twist tie the back. The easiest way to do that is to twist the pine cone and hold the ends down with your fingers on your right hand, or left if you're left-handed. That gives you 2 arms to wrap around the wreath and then twist tie to hold it in place. So I usually pick a place on the wreath, paying attention to where the hanger is, which is up here, to where I think it is a little thinner than some other places. Like this looks a little thinner. I'm going to lay my pine cone not on top and wrap. I'm going to try to get it underneath and flip it over. It's not going to hurt the pine cones. It's not going to hurt the evergreens. And I'm going to twist tie like bread again, maybe 3 times if you can, with the ends. So it looks like this. But again, we have to weave them in because we don't want to ruin the door or the wall where this is going to be hung. Same technique. I'm going to put it inside. Now this time, I'm going to make sure that my ends are even before I start twist tying it to the pine cone. So same motion, move the pine cone instead of the fingers. This just makes it easier. 3 times. Then, let's see. I'm thinking we will add 3 pine cones to this. So we're going to add, we're not going to put 4 because then it looks like a clock. We're going to put 1 here, maybe 1 here, and 1 down there. If you're going to use a bow, it will not matter where the bow ends up. The 3 pine cones will keep this balance. So we pick another spot. Got a little bit different shaped pine cone. I'm going to put it like over there. That's too close. Let's put it down here. Okay, we got to make sure that we wrap it in the area where the stems were so we don't crush the fullness of the wreath. Oh, I did better on the ends than that one. So if I can find it. And then you're going to twist tie these again. By the time you do this, there's really not a lot of wire left to tuck under. Right now I'm quite near a small twig, so I'll just use a small twig. I only have to really wrap it once or twice. Okay, whoops, I made it opposite. It looks kind of silly to take it out, or turn it up this way, turn this one down that way. So we're going to put another one. So here's our hanger. Our hanger's actually over here, so we can put one right there. So here's another smaller one. It's always good to have them different sizes. I'm measuring this again. And there are plenty of other kinds of pine cones, but you don't have to use these. These are from a red pine. And our red pine tree has had a blight, and so I didn't bring any today. It's a stiffer kind of needle. So it's turning out all sorts of pine cones. So I picked some even for next year to use. So I'm going to put it, how about over here? Right along in here. Again, you don't want to see the wire, but you want to secure it. Flip it over, take the ends. I made my piece a little bit longer this time. It's going to be harder to weave, but faster to do. All right, I happen to see, this is probably an end we're going to cut off, so I won't use that. I see a small one to wrap it around. And you can use one of these that stick up. If it sticks towards the inside, just wrap the pieces around it on top of each other. Okay, now we have our 3 pine cones. And make sure that they're separated. You can always move it. Now we're ready for decorations or a bow, whatever you want. I didn't bring any decorations. I'm sure you can find something that you like somewhere, but I did bring something like a decoration, like you could find a ball to put on the tree or a little angel or something. This is easy to do because it has a plastic back. Now I'm going to try to put this ribbon on, see how it looks. Again, I got to make sure my wire's long enough. Okay, this is easier because the back has a natural hole where this loop is, which you can put through. Now this one actually came with a twist tie about the size that you twist tie bread with, but I can't get that around the wreath, so I had to take that out and use one that I will make. Now, holding your fingers, the same thing as the pine cones, just turn the item. If you had a decoration that was a ball or a little tree or something, you would have maybe a loop you could use, or you could wrap it around it loosely, but this one suits us. So I'm going to put it up here, see how it looks. Same way you would wrap the pine cones, and our wreath would be done with that one. Well, what if we want to have a simple bow? We love this material, we've already made ourselves a bow, we want a long tail, so let's see how we would put that on. We turn it over and we try to locate, and I say try to locate something to push it through. It may not be so easy. If it isn't, guess what? We treat it like a pine cone then. We lay the wire at the center around it, and how do we tighten that? Same way we did all the pine cones, a couple, 3 times. You go around, and you can always fluff up the bow after you're done. All right, so we put our bow in this spot. Let's see how that looks. This is a bow like you would tie on your shoe. And you can always cut the ends to suit. That's another look. All right. Well, we have a friend who's good at bow making. We have a huge bow. And luckily enough, it comes with ends, which I think are long enough to get around the wreath. Okay, we can put that on. Twist tie the back and tuck it and weave it in like we've been doing. And we're done. The ladies in the Village Garden Club helped me assemble the pine cones and the greens to get ready to do this wreath making. I hope you enjoyed it. Congratulations, we finished, or you will finish, a completed wreath. In your bags, in the kit, you will also find a 2-page set of directions if you have to refer to anything that we've shown on the YouTube. Thank you for joining us today at the Sewickley Library.